Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a DFS golf preview for the 2021 Farmers Insurance Open. What I typically like to cover in these videos, basically going over a bunch of historical data, including past results. We'll look at DraftKings historical salaries, looking at the optimal lineup from 2018 to present day, well, 2018, 2019, 2020, and then we'll finish it off with the bucket system and some of my favorite plays. I, in the future, want to cover recent form buckets, but we're just not going to be able to do it with really only 3 tournaments that preceded this one. I don't think that's enough data that would be good for. It wouldn't be a good enough analysis, in my opinion. So that's something we're not including in this one, but I want to in the future. Timestamps are in the description below. Otherwise, the progress bar is broken up into segments. Those are called chapter mode. You can find whatever segment is what just by hovering over the progress bar. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the spreadsheet. Let's cover past results right away. I have highlighted all of the Australians because that's the first thing that I want to mention before we get into like target score and that kind of stuff. But basically what I have highlighted every Australian or the best finishing Australian in each field. And I feel like I'm missing one. Where is it? Okay. So Mark Leishman finished 20th in 2017. But if you look, we have a 1st, 5th, 1st. I did also highlight Leishman in 2018. Then a 20th, an 8th in 2016. 2015 was a 1st. 2014 was a 2nd. And Jason Day was a 9th in 2013. So the Australians have a pretty good track record of finishing inside the top 20 at this event. And if you were watching the review video of the American Express, or if you've listened to any of my other videos previously, I had mentioned that Dennis Paulson off of the PGA Tour live broadcast said that, I think it was at the Sony Open, Australians play well during this time of the year because their biological clock is synced up to this season, which it's their summer. So if you think about, when you typically go golfing, your biological clock would also be synced up with that. This is the season of golf for the Australians. Obviously, it's PGA Tour. The season lasts almost all year round. But if there was, even more fuel to add to the fire of why you should play an Australian, you can see, the top 20 leaderboard has at least one. And, it's not like this is littered with Australians. Like this tournament isn't. Usually you have somewhere between 7 to 9. But again, if there was ever a reason to play an Australian, I'm trying to present it in front of you. I will, because there are a lot of good players that are Australian that are really good priced, or really, their price is very enticing. Okay, that's my little segment off of that. When we look at the winning score, besides 2019 where 21 under 1, I guarantee you that was perfect weather. If we look, we see, scores hovering between 9 and 15 under. That's kind of a cheat, but we have 2 rounds of 9 under. We have a round 14 under, 13 under, 15 under, and 10. So it's somewhere between that 10 to 15 range. 2016 and 2019, I guess you could call outliers. 6 under was the highest score, and 21 under was the lowest score for the winning score, that is. I'm going to assume if the weather, and that's the other thing too, like you're going to have to pay attention to the weather. I can't tell you what it's going to be right now, but you're going to have to look. If it's going to forecast, heavy wind or rain or anything like that, definitely target your grinding out golfers. I've mentioned this in previous videos. The reason Jason Day does well at a tournament like this is because avoiding bogey is more important than making birdie. And Jason Day is really good at doing that kind of thing. He shows up 10 under, he won, 9 under, he won. He shoots around that 9, 10 under pretty regularly at this event. He did 14 under in 2019. So he can go up, but typically what we see is, like Jason Day does really well because this is a course. I mean, it's a course for elite golfers, really. It's a major venue type tournament. I guess that leads me to a couple other things. The US Open's being played here later on this year. I don't think, like, the very first thing is a lot of people are assuming that the course is going to be really difficult because they are gearing up for the US Open. The US Open happens in June. In order to kind of revamp a golf course, it only takes 3 months of time. So I don't think they're going to actually have this like gearing up, because the other thing too is, if you look at the tournament fact sheets from last year, this course was overseeded with ryegrass. Like it's still POA on the greens. That won't change throughout the whole season, but when it's the summer months, it's Bermuda off of the tee box. It's then Kikuyu grass in the rough, but during this time, it's all ryegrass. Everything is overseeded with rye. And rye is, I mean, it can get thick, but it's usually pretty manageable. So I don't know. I don't feel like the course is going to be as tough as it would have been like in previous years. I think it's going to be pretty similar. The only, I guess, caveat to that is there are no spectators. So I would assume that perhaps, we're not going to see trampled down areas of the golf course. Everything's just going to be sticking straight up and fresh. That could make the course harder, definitely. But it still doesn't sway my opinion one way or another. I'm still trying to find golfers who do well when the score is high. High as in closer to par. So if you have those stats that you can research yourself, I would definitely do that. Look for a target score around like 10 under and see who plays well, and cross-reference it to this field and see if these golfers, match that type of profile, because I'm guessing you're going to have a better opportunity of finding a good lineup that way than trying to find birdie makers. And I know DraftKings, we want birdie makers as much as possible, but, we might see the winner only have 15 birdies, throughout the entire tournament. And the most we might see out of one golfer might be 20, which is still going to be good. That is 15 more points than the golfer without, taking in any other kind of deduction in points or anything like that. But I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult to try to find, consistent birdie makers at this golf course or at the two golf courses, because that's the other thing I wanted to bring up. We have the South course and the North course, and I'll talk about this in the course fit video, but the two different courses offer different challenges. Now, a lot of people say the North course is a little bit easier than the South. I think statistically speaking, it is. They did, I think, add 300 yards to the North course, so it is a little bit more difficult. I just don't know exactly how much, I'm not sure, and I don't really care. I think the score, again, it's going to be around 10 to 12 under. That is considering 1 to maybe 2 days of wind above 15 miles an hour. If it's perfect days, then I think we can say target score is going to be around 15 to 17 under. So either way, it's not going to be as low scoring as we've seen over the last couple weeks. Definitely find your grinded out golfers. Okay, that's longer than I anticipated on talking about past results, but I think there's a lot of good information in there for you guys to digest. What I like to cover usually in these preview videos is looking at historical salaries. And I record all of the salaries that, I've played DraftKings contests through, but I do believe, I can't remember when DraftKings came out with certain contests, but I think when they actually had a full season event, it was either 2018 or 2017. I think it came out in 2016, but either way, I have salaries from 2018 to 2020. I recorded all the top 10. You can see it all on the screen that's highlighted. With this data, I also kind of scrub it against the total amount in each of these salary fields, for the 3 years that I'm using. and then bring it all over here in kind of this analysis box, if you want to call it that. The very first thing I usually like to look at is the average salary within the top 10. Last week we had 7,700. The week before that, I think we had 78 or 76. It was 1,000 more, 1,000 less. What that's saying in either of those two tournaments, inside the top 10, like there are more low salary golfers in those fields inside the top 10 than there are high salary. And that basically is saying that it's a bit more volatile, if you want to call it that. I would say more of long shots win those golf courses, or not win, but play well, finish inside the top 10. This, however, is closer to the DraftKings salary, like average remaining salary. So 83.3 is your average salary you can use on DraftKings to pick your 6 golfers out of $50,000 of salary. When it's above that, that means there are more favorites inside the top 10. When it's below that, it means there are less. This is a tournament where we see pretty much... It's also a tournament where we see a lot of good golfers come to, right? It's one of those prestigious tournaments that, obviously we have Rory McIlroy in the field, Jon Rahm. We have a lot of studs at this tournament. It's not including everybody that would be at a major championship, but it's very similar. It's definitely a stronger strength of field than the last 2 weeks. So with all that being said, we are going to see higher salaries within the top 10. But that is also not to say that we won't see low salaries. I do account by top 10, account by top 5, and your best, the salary that shows up the most over the last 3 years is 6,500. Now you can take with that as is whatever you want, but when we look at the other, counts of more than just one, so 2 and above, we see 4 other salaries in the 6K range. And then 7s, 8, 9, 10. Now we can scroll down. You're going to see many more. We only see one more 6K range, but to kind of look at more of an analysis approach, out of the top 10, this is the count of how many golfers in those salary price points finish inside the top 10. The highest count is from the 6K range. 27% of top 10 golfers from 2018 to 2020 fell in the 6K range. Next would be, it would be a tie between 10K and above and 7K. So really, this is kind of like, it's telling us a little bit, maybe a stars and scrubs approach is going to be the most ideal part here. Or, you definitely want to consider maybe having 1 or 2 6K golfers, maybe just one. It would be saying grab 2 6K golfers, and then 1 10K and fill in the rest. A lot like last week. To go a little bit a layer deeper than that, I have an analysis based off of, this is looking at how many, like the total golfers over the last 3 years fall under these price buckets. 10K and above, 9 to 10, 8 to 9, 7 to 8, below 7. Those are your buckets. 57.14% of all 10K golfers find themselves inside the top 10. That's again looking at the last 3 years. So that's a lot higher than we saw at the American Express, which should give you more confidence. Like, definitely play a 10K golfer and a 10K above golfer. And if you look, like, there's 3 in 2020, we have 4 in 2019, 1 in 2018. So your minimum might be 1, your max is 4. It's all about creating the right lineups, but I don't know. If how I'm looking at this is how I would do it. We have an 11-3, 11-6 in the top 3 in 2020. You have a 10-8 in 2019. You don't have a 10K in the top 5 in 2018. This would be 33%. How I would construct lineups is maybe 33% of my lineups are completely balanced, where I'm not going over, 9-9, and I'm keeping, if we were constructing a lineup with these golfers, I don't know if we even can find a plausible one. That's 48,900. So we'd be leaving $1,100 on the table, and that's probably the closest you're going to get to the optimal lineup. I'm not sure, but if you did something like that, that would make sense. But if you're going that route, this is 49,700. So it would be including a 10K golfer and above. Why wouldn't you, right? Now that I went through this and looked at this, I would say no matter what, all of my lineups are going to, I think if I'm creating 50 lineups, I already have 50 placeholders. I usually go up to 70, 75, 80. But out of my 50 lineups, I think 5 of them I might allocate to a lineup under, the highest price guys under 10K. Just to cover my bases. Other than that, I'm definitely considering a 10K golfer. I'm going to play a 10K golfer. I might even play 2. I think we could do that in this tournament. I don't know how much I'm going to do that, but I think that's probably a plausible play because 57.14%, that's 8 golfers out of 14. We have, I think, 5 in the field, if I can remember correctly. Yeah, we have 5 golfers that are 10K and above. If we're looking at a 57% clip, that means you definitely want 2, maybe a third one here and there. But I would definitely fluctuate between 1. I'll give you, I think this is how I'm gonna try to do this. My breakdown is gonna be 25% of my lineups will have, or let's put it this way, 24% of my lineups will have at least 1. 50% will have at least 2. No, that's getting crazy. I'm not going to get 3 10K golfers. Just never mind. Never mind I said that. Never mind I said that. But you get the idea. There's no reason not to play anybody at the 10K range and above. But then obviously your highest amount of golfers inside the top 10 are 6K golfers. But look at how many typically are in this field. 259 over the last 3 years. 259, 10 of those, that makes 3.86%. I think that's correct math. That seems a bit off, but no, it's right on the money. Yeah, okay. So either way, trying to find a 6K golfer is, again, going to be a crapshoot. It is every single week. Follow the 6K range because they usually have some good touts. I don't know how they did during the American Express, but either way, if there's a specialist to follow it or to listen to, it definitely be them. But let's move on to optimal lineups. So let's see if my theory of wanting a 10K golfer and above, stands or whatever. Now, I will say this. There was a point in time that I actually didn't record what the optimal lineup was. I just guessed based off a salary, and I think that's what this is. So I have no idea what the optimal lineup is, but we kind of already determined that this at 49,700 probably was the best bet for, you winning a GPP, essentially. But it could, any mix of these golfers probably gets you up there. That goes over. This goes over. You would have to include a 6K golfer in order for that to work. But either way, obviously you can see the mix and match between in 2018. That you could make the argument it does not include a 10K golfer. Now, in 2019, I started recording the GPP winning lineup. It looks like I didn't record the optimal lineup. I don't have the DraftKings points to go with this, so this was probably another guess if I'm gonna assume so. But if you can see, I'm thinking I want to create a lineup similar to this. This is my thought process. Finding someone, 10K and above. So this would be Justin Rose at 10.8. Drop into maybe the 9K range, someone I like in the 9K range, going to the 8K range possibly, and then probably finding someone in the 6K range, and then finishing it up with 2 7K golfers. I mean, that's kind of I think a lot of people, that's probably the standard way of making a lineup. If I were to guess, maybe not. I could be totally wrong. I personally have no issue dropping into the 6K and finding a golfer. I mean, we had 2 more golfers in the 6K, that finished 9th place. I think we're going to have to find somebody there. In 2020, I think this is finally, I recorded the optimal lineup for this one. It scored 20 more points than the $5 GPP winning lineup. And that included an 8K, 11, 8-4, 7-5, 6-6, 7-8. So we went from 11 to 2 8Ks, dropped to 2 7s, and then finished it off with a 6K. And I think that's something we're going to want to do. The $5 GPP even used a 6K golfer as well in Patrick Rogers. So I think the best way to create lineups would be, including a 6K golfer. So that's all we have for the optimal lineup. Let's go ahead and get right into the bucket system. I'm going to try to explain this really quickly and not spend too much time on it, because I do want to get to the favorite plays and try to keep this video under 30 minutes. But as we can see, I did a lot of the same stuff that we find, during the historical salaries. Basically, what I want to look at is the total amount of golfers that fall under these buckets of your last year and last week. I want to see what that percentage is when it comes to golfers inside the top 10 for each of those buckets. And then I want to compare the buckets to themselves. The number 1 bucket for last year, so your last year bucket 1, are golfers who finished inside the top 20 the year before. And that's at a 34% clip. So of all top 10s going back to 2014, 34% of them had a top 20 finish before. But it even gets better than that. We don't see a minimum less than 2. Like 2 is the minimum, and then it goes right up to 4. So that's your top 10. Finding golfers who were top 20 last year. So that's like, it's a huge indication. That's what we want to follow, those particular guidelines. If we wanted to see top 5, the minimum is 1, mostly 2. So if there was ever a reason to play anybody in the 10K range, it's probably those that finished top 20 the year before. That would be my kind of my sell point to you guys is definitely consider golfers inside, that are 10K and above who finished top 20 the year before. And it doesn't even have to be. You don't have to really do that if you don't want to. Your second bucket in the last year bucket range are golfers who did not play. That's at 20%, followed by golfers who missed the cut the year before. So right away, the first guy comes to mind is Xander. Xander missed the cut last year. He has played pretty poorly at this tournament, considering it's, where he grew up. But if this was more of a reason to play Xander, there you go. 19% of top 10s have a last year 3. Minimum is over 1, or minimum is 1. Let's just say it's over 0. So it seems pretty consistent to find at least 1 golfer in that range. Pretty consistent to find 2 golfers in the did not play range. When we look at it a little bit deeper and we look at all the total numbers of, those buckets over the last, 7 years, I think that is, 8 years, 21.58% of top 20 golfers in, these fields finish inside the top 10. That's a pretty good clip. 1/5, we have 5 golfers, meaning mix and match all the top 10s, or the 10K and above. Never mind. I'm mixing 2 things up. Top 20s. There are more than 5. I guess we can look right away. How many top? So I do have it sorted by bucket range here. We have 18 of 20 top, or golfers who finished top 20 last year. And you can see it's broken down by salary. Your cheapest is 6'2". There are 2 golfers here. I can tell you right now, I'm not playing Beau Hosler. There's just no way in hell. So that eliminates 1 golfer for me. But then when we further dig into these buckets, I mean, there's a lot of good golfers in here. There are probably easy ones to avoid. I mean, I'm going to probably avoid Brandt. I know he does really well here, but he just hasn't been golfing great since the restart of COVID. Or since COVID, the COVID break. Probably not going to play Mark Leishman either. I mean, you can find ways to eliminate some of these golfers, but 4 of your 5 golfers inside the top 10 had a finishing position of 20th or better, and really they had a finishing position of 6th or better. So you're going to find one of the golfers here, definitely. If there was ever a reason, if you're multi-mass entering tournaments, this is probably where you anchor your lineups with, most likely. Going back to the bucket system, so the rest of them, I mean, 10% for bucket 4 and 5. That's not terrible. It's a little bit more volatile. The other 2 buckets, like bucket 2 and 3, finding the right golfer might be a little bit more difficult. We're looking at 6.44% of golfers within that last year bucket 3 range, finishing inside the top 10. That's not that's fish, that's trying to find a needle in a haystack. Same applies with golfers who did not play the year before. When we look at the last week bucket, overwhelming favorite is those who did not play the week before. 48% of our golfers inside the top 10 were golfers who did not play the week before. This also includes golfers who played in the European Tour event the year before, or the week before. If I keep saying year before, we're talking about last week, so it's the week before. So those that were in Abu Dhabi, they would be included in this did not play, because the did not play are just golfers who did not play the week before on the PGA Tour. So you would include the European golfers here as well. So don't get that mixed up. 48%, top 10. This should say top 10, not top 5. 48% finished inside the top 10. Now, the overall bucket itself, 11.11% of all golfers who did not play the week before finished inside the top 10, which is pretty remarkable. Like that's a really good number. Your minimum is 3, your maximum is 8. So you could literally make a lineup of all 6 golfers who did not play the week before. I don't know if you would ever get close to the optimal lineup. We would have to look at every single year. You can always rewind this video and go back to when I looked up 2018, 2019, 2020 to see if you could follow that trend. But either way, definitely I think the minimum for me is going to be 3 of golfers who did not play the week before, as some of these other buckets are very volatile where we see a lot of zeros show up, despite the percentages not being terrible. Golfers who missed the cut, though, last week, not good. 9% inside the top 10, and nearly 2% of that entire bucket over, since 2013 has shown up inside the top 10. So missed cuts don't look well. We have 63 golfers who missed the cut or withdrew in this field. It's a little bit on the high end when we consider the average number. Yeah, 51, so 12 above that number. I guess we can compare it to 2016. It's a very similar. So 2016, we saw 1 golfer inside the top 10 that missed the cut the week before. So definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, definitely want to find golfers who either top 20 the week before or did not play. So those are my top 2 buckets for last week. Mix that with your last year bucket 1, which were golfers who finished top 20, did not plays, and missed cuts from the year before. Those are really, I'm going to mix and match a lot of those together, usually for like 3 or 4 of my positions, and then the other 2 I'm just going to leave to randomness, basically. I don't care if it's a 1-5, a 4-5. We'll get more into that. The next piece, so this video is not going to be under 30 minutes. I just looked at the time. I like to look at the combinations of golfers, you know, their last year bucket and their last week bucket to see how well a bucket combination has done. I won't really dig into this any further, but your number one bucket combination are golfers with a last year one bucket, last week one bucket, which were again golfers who top 20 the week before or the year before and top 20 the week before. No. Sorry. Top 20 the year before and did not play the week before. Again, including golfers who played in the European Tour the week before. I hope I didn't lose you there. But basically, any golfer, so when we look at the DK page during the strategy video, finding golfers that I'm going to deem as 1-1s are the way to go. Let me just repeat that as best as I can. Golfers who top 20 last year at this event, you want to target them, as well as did not play the week before. And that also includes golfers who played in the European Tour the week before. Actually, let me just show you. Your number one, actually, first of all, look at the rest of the combinations. 3-1s would be your next bet. That's Xander. Xander is this bucket combination. That would be a missed cut to go with the did not play. And then I'm not going to really talk about, 2-1s, not terrible. Those would be golfers who did not play last year, and did not play last week. So let's go ahead and look at those 3 bucket combinations so you guys can get a pretty good sense of what is what. And you can already see the 1-1s very limited. You've got Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, Bubba Watson, Mark Leishman, Jason Day, Harry Higgs, and JB Holmes. It's super interesting. I wonder if I have a minimum for you guys to play a 1-1 in. I'm just trying to find if there's, okay, so 2015 was the last time, the only time, one bucket combination of last year one, last week one showed up inside the top 10. Otherwise, we've seen more than one in every single year. So in this particular bucket of golfers, I think it would, I think I'm starting my lineups just with 2 of these right off the gate. I'm gonna probably follow that percentage. Basically, like 15% of my lineups will have just one of these guys. The other 85 are going to have at least 2. Combination of 2. And maybe 3. I did note in my review video for the American Express that COVID kind of makes this a little bit weird. But that means we kind of have to look at the numbers here and see if anything, jumps out of the ordinary, like 53 golfers who missed the cut last year are in this tournament. It is the highest number that we've ever seen. We might see 1 or 2 more who missed the cut last year do well at this tournament. Otherwise, the rest of the numbers stay pretty stable. Not really. I guess the 20 to 40 range is up. And a quick explanation to that is there was no Korn Ferry graduation. So we didn't lose any golfers, any PGA Tour members. Usually every single year we lose nearly, I would say 50 to 70 golfers. They just lose their card because they don't make the top 125 or didn't have some kind of special exemption or something like that. So we typically lose, out of 200, nearly around 70 golfers, but usually they have some kind of exemption that allows them to, they can use up for the next year. So we always have around 200 PGA Tour members, but we didn't have that transfer of graduates in, guys who missed who lost their card out. So that's why we see the did not play bucket is probably the one that suffered the most. So golfers who did not play the year before, you could rate that bucket a little bit lower. But it looked like last week bucket stays nearly the same. A little bit more for missed cuts last year, so maybe we do find a missed cut inside the top, like one more inside the top 10 than we usually would. But for the most part, everything stays the same. So I was showing you the different bucket combinations. 1-1s, there you go. We want to look at 2-1s, a little bit more. There are probably some guys down here that you can just cross off, you know, like maybe these 4, maybe these 5, and you're really working with these golfers here. Perhaps, you know, you pick one, maybe you don't pick any, because what I just told you with, you know, this bucket being a little smaller than it usually is, maybe that's a reason, you know, the last year bucket, that is. Maybe that's a reason not to play them. I don't know. Up to you guys. And then last year 3s, this would be one that you'd want to play more of. There are, again, probably 3 golfers we can just cross off, although KJ Choi has a decent track record here. But, you know, we have Robert Streb, Justin Suh, Keith Mitchell, HV3. You know, these guys here, to me, it's a crapshoot. I do like these 2 golfers. So it might even be pointing more towards a Xander week. I know a lot of people are already on him. He's a 10K and above golfer. So it would make sense. But I think, you know, if I were to, I'm just going to use this bucket here, put X's here for my favorite golfers. I'm probably doing something like this. I can just open this up too, right? So really, for me, my favorite golfers are down to 11, and I have them on the screen right now. I'll say them out to you guys. Jon Rahm, Rory, Bubba, Mark Leishman, Jason Day, JB Holmes, Adam Scott, Will Zalatoris, Louis Oosthuizen, Xander Schauffele, and Carlos Ortiz. Those would be my favorite plays based off of, bucket system and also salary construction. I mean, look at everybody. They're all in that salary bucket, or those salary buckets that we like. I only have one 6K golfer, one 7K, a lot of 8s. So it's really trying to choose, but then these might be my 3 anchor spots for 10K and above. So with that, I'll leave you with it. Please leave any comments, any questions you have in the comment section, but thank you guys for watching, and please leave a like and subscribe. All right, see you later.